What is going on, Replonians, Replo friends? My name is Sanjay Jenkins, and welcome back to another episode of Design to Convert. This one's going to be a lot of fun. As always, I have a ton of fun on these podcasts, and I hope you as the listener do as well. Mostly just because I get to talk to really cool people doing really cool stuff in e-commerce, and today is no exception. I've got Josemaria Silvestrini of Happy Being, and he is an e-commerce brand founder and operator. We're going to talk about how they started their brand, how they kind of stumbled through Shopify, and now they're running a business that's growing really well. Their mission. We're going to go into stuff like automation and how they have been able to use Replo to grow their business as well. So a lot of really cool stuff in this episode. I'm excited to get into this. Josemaria,
I'm doing
welcome,
great,
brother. How
Super
are you?
Excited to get started.
Awesome. So let's dive right in. Give us the quick background on Happy Being. What is it that you make and sell, and how'd you find this
So
out?
we make what just might be the world's healthiest drinks and protein powders. So imagine if Kachava and Athletic Greens had an even tastier baby. That's our protein line. Imagine if Honest Tea was honestly good for you. That's our tea line. All of the stuff that we do is rooted in a bunch of science, really focused on things like epigenetics and polyphenols. The kind of 10,000 foot view. Our main co-founder / CEO, Chris, has been in the functional medicine space for about 30 years. So through his retail clinic, he's been able to help literally thousands of people as they're dealing with menopause, cancer, Alzheimer's, all these different things. And the idea was, how do we take the work that he's done on a one-on-one level and make products that get people 80% of the way there, and then the support element that can get them another 10, 20%. We're not trying to be doctors, we're not trying to make medical claims, but we are trying to bring the highest level of science and the biggest health impact possible in the market.
It's a pretty tremendous kind of tagline, with the healthiest products in the market. I love the framing, and one of the things you call that was taste. I think a lot of times these products tend to be really chalky and just not fun. You mentioned your co-founder had a lot of background in this. Is this something that you stumbled into, or how did y'all come together to build?
Yeah,
this,
it's actually kind of a funny story. I mean, I don't know if anyone listening is familiar with Williams College, but it's a very small school, about 2,000 people. It's one of those places where everyone is supposed to know each other. My other co-founder, Dutch, and I, though, never crossed paths in 3 years. And then all of a sudden in our last year, half of all of our classes were together. So, through the course of that, we just started talking. He was talking to Chris about this idea. I originally have a chemistry background, so I have some familiarity with the science and things like that. So I just kind of started working with them on it. And then after graduation, it was kind of a nights and weekends type thing. And then by the fall of 2019, so a couple months after we graduated, we just decided, hey, let's try this out and get going. And then it ensued several years of actually trying to launch it, and now scaling it.
It's incredible. And do you guys you had jobs and you just funded this from what you were making there?
Yeah, we were able to raise a little bit of money from some angel investors, and then that has kind of kept things going for us.
Nice. And walk me through I'm always curious on food products or ingestibles of any kind. There's so many different hoops to jump through. Did you go to a bunch of different labs? Was there a co-packer that you visited? What was that process? I mean, you said you had a chemistry background, and you've got someone with the functional medicine background as well. How does that kind of come together to actually make these products come to life?
The recommended course of action, if you have a food beverage and you don't have a lot of, or any sort of product really, is if you don't have a lot of money, is you start at the kitchen table. You take that then to a commercial kitchen where you kind of try to figure it out a little more. Then you take it to a lab, and then that lab is okay, these are the suppliers. This is what you do. And then that goes to go to a co-packer.
Is that like Quest Nutrition? That's what
Quest pretty much, did, yeah. Right? Or we were talking about 4-hour work week. That's what Tim Ferriss did. He just went to a lab, had them private label this stuff, and sent it off. We ended up through trial and error finding a couple different labs. The lab that we ended up working with, we picked because they had a small pilot facility as well. Some funny stories on that one later, but Yeah, I mean, we like taste is the biggest thing, right? So we did basically 3 rounds of iterations. The first round, we made like, 1,000 bottles, which in our industry is literally nothing. Sent that out to friends and family, got the taste. Feedback was this is not good. So we're like, okay, let's iterate on that. Went to market with like about 10,000 bottles, slightly different taste profile. We were starting to see some success with that. It wasn't amazing. We went back for a third edit, kind of rethought the whole process. And, since then we've been seeing much better results. Because again, anything that is an ingestible must be pleasurable, right? It must be delicious.
Mm-hmm. And how bad was bad on the first round? Like, was it?
It was bad. It was bad.
Like, are your friend calling you like, bro, like, why are we doing this right now?
Pretty much, yeah. Like, my mother, who's a saint, was like, I would really think about not doing this. But it wasn't even just the taste side. Like the manufacturing, like the scale was so bad. Like I told you this story before, but when we went to our second production run, which was going to be like 10,000 bottles, super small, we ended up getting to the warehouse at like 3-4 o'clock on a Monday. The capping machine breaks. So the thing that's actually putting the lids on the bottle isn't working. So at like 9 p.m., once they give up on trying to fix it, Dutch and myself actually hop on the line with the rest of the factory workers. And we spend, over the course of the next 36 hours, hand screwing thousands and thousands of bottles before they were to get pasteurized. Like by the end, we like hadn't slept, we hadn't eaten, our hands were messed up. Like, and now compare that to where we're at now, where we're, moving to a new facility that's fully automated. People just put the stuff in a drum and then it moves through the line, and like a human being doesn't have to touch it until it literally gets to the shelf.
And so we're gonna have to go deeper in the automations and also manufacturing. That's something that I'm incredibly passionate about. I ran a very analog, very manual facility for a long time. We made soap, so I'm sure there's some overlap. I mean, it's a lot of fluids moving around, but walk me through. So the first run, you got 1,000 bottles. You sent it out to friends and family. Did you sell any of those 1,000 bottles, or was that just like, okay?
It was just feedback. We got we were watching The Profit with Marcus Lemonis, and like through there we saw VSL Printing, which is like this print shop in New York. So because we didn't know anybody else, we just called them, and then they made us our boxes. So we got those boxes, we got the bottles, and like Dutch and I literally by hand, and Chris and the rest of the family too, like we're tying bows on all of these different little care packages that had like our brand book, some information about the card, and we were putting that like into, I think like 150 different sort of influencer style boxes to our friends and family. And yeah, that's how we started. And we just put up a type form, got the feedback back. We're trying to be really iterative based off of whatever feedback. So the first feedback was taste is too bitter. So we switched from a green tea base to a white tea base because it has fewer bitter notes. Similar things with other stuff. Like when we went from round 2 to round 3, people didn't like the stevia taste or our sweetener matrix, or actually we had monk fruit back then. So based on that feedback, we iterated to a stevia xylitol blend that's, just a little bit of a more well-rounded sweetness profile. But yeah, I mean, that's how we try to follow for everything. It's like, all right, what information do we have and how do we operate based on that?
And I know that you've taken that to your landing page testing as well, which we'll go into deeper. But I really want to understand the product a little bit more because I love drinking soda. I love being an unhealthy, just not great person sometimes, and so just starting to explore these products that are out there. Obviously, like I think protein and shakes, that's pretty linear. But this tea product that you have, how did that form come to be? Is that something that had you tried? I mean, you mentioned Honest Tea, so I guess that's like some level of a baseline. But how did that like kind of evolve? And then the follow up there is there like a layer of education that you have to give to customers for them to buy into the product when you sell it?
Yeah. So the last question, level of education, totally. That's something that we've been working on and are continuing to work on. What we find is that there is tremendous health benefit, and people who stay on talk about, needing fewer anti-inflammatories, having less brain fog, better gut health, like all the things that we would expect to happen. But we also find that a ton of people just buy it because it tastes really, really good. Like, why did we do a drink versus a pill? We could have just made a multivitamin with all these things. Like, I mean, my girlfriend has like 20 different supplements. I'm sure you know people like that. Like, at a certain point, you just don't want to swallow another pill, right? So when we were thinking about the medium and form, we thought that a drink, would make the most sense because it's something that can be pleasurable in and of itself. And like, again, this is something for anybody to take back. The more pleasure you can give your consumer, the stickier your product is going to be. Like, if you look at like something like Magic Mind, people feel an effect from it, but it also tastes good, right? So if it didn't taste good, I'm certain that their retention curve would be way worse. And that's something that we just thought about a lot, is how do we create a product that people look forward to? We say a lot of times it's a tool and a treat. It's good for you, but you actually want to drink it every day.
Almost, it seems that you've essentially flipped the approach that a lot of these brands have. I've talked to a lot. I've seen a lot of these brands pop up, functional beverages, a lot of the mushroom stuff, etc. I think everyone starts with the effects, and then taste is almost an afterthought. And you've definitely, like, at the very least, incorporated it deeply into the product, and it seems you've taken it even further and made sure that it's just a drink. Like, even if people aren't buying it for the benefit of the all the health benefits you're getting.
I'll share this story, which I'll butcher, but is interesting. At one point, I don't remember quite the dates, P&G was working with the Indian government to try to increase hand washing in the nation. So they tried all sorts of marketing. They tried all sorts of packaging. They tried anything they could think of to get people to wash their hands. The only thing that resulted in increased rates of hand washing was when they made the soap look good and smell good. So what's the lesson from that? It's pleasure is the thing, right? We are pleasure-seeking creatures. This jar of mushroom stuff could make me immortal. If it tastes like the worst thing on earth, I'm going to drink it for a week or two, but I'm not going to drink it every single day, and I'm not going to get the real benefits. So for us, we wanted a daily product, and the only way to do that is if it looks good, tastes good, smells good.
How many do you drink?
I usually drink 1 to 2 a day. My mom, though, that drinks 2 every single day.
But just really okay. That's the sales pitch right there. That's how you know it's good. Your chemistry background, you've got a doctor on the team. How do you figure out e-commerce? Like when before we started recording, you mentioned, let's forget the Shopify thing. Like what did that look like? Was it just Googling around? Did you, hire anybody to help? What was that process
this
like?
has been in so many different stages. Like stage 0, we were focusing a lot more on the retail business. And then once it became clear that that's incredibly capital intensive and hard to scale, more and more energy went back to the online. And we went through a phase of okay, we just got to post on Instagram, we just got to post all the time. But then, we realized, okay, well, we're not actually getting any reach or anything. So I ended up taking this course from Founder magazine. I did the free version. I'm sure, everybody has done that.
Yeah.
That's version 0 of what you do. So then that's when we started okay, there's this thing called meta ads. Awesome. There's something called an ads.
You take
that's right.
Shackelford's course.
Yeah.
Shaq's great.
So did that, just kept learning, kept doing stuff. And, just whatever Meta would send to my Facebook account as a targeted ad, which is actually a great way to learn stuff. We would take those things, we would use the suppliers, learn and improve. Now, where we really messed up was not having more of an understanding, which, anybody listening, you should get on Mentor Pass and just go talk to Nick Shackelford or, Ron at all these people who will put you 3 years ahead of yourself. Because we were getting a 1.5x ROAS, in the very early days, and we're oh, this isn't good. We need to hit a 3 or something. Now I would shoot somebody for that, that scale. So a lot of stuff in-house. Last summer we went with an agency that went super badly, as I'm sure you've heard and everyone listening has heard at some point. So we've taken things back in-house, working with some other consultants and, starting to see some more improvements from that. But yeah, a lot of it was just Google, a lot of YouTube. Mentor Pass, when we figured that out, was helpful. And then honestly, just good fortune of, being embedded in like some different communities that could send people our way and teach us things. But yeah, it's a lot of trial and error. If I was to compress the last 4 years of learning into how does one scale, you as a business are a performance marketing company until you hit $50 million a year in sales. Anything before that, like, you really don't want to care about at all. And like, how do you be a performance marketing company? There's only two things that matter. How do you improve your conversion rates to the highest level possible? So what's your offer? What are your headlines? What are your selling features? All those sorts of things. And then the other thing is you have to be really good at creative testing. So what does creative testing mean? We talk about that all the time. People have some opinions on it, but this is roughly the structure most people follow. You have a prospecting campaign in Meta. So this is like a campaign that has a lot more money behind it. Then you have a creative testing campaign. That creative testing campaign, a few ways you can slice and dice it, but you're basically uploading either still or UGC style ads. And you're literally just looking, okay, what is the click-through rate? What's the hold rate? What's the cost per click? What are the CPMs? All these sorts of things. And you're just like comparing yourself every 7 days or whatever your timeline looks like. All right, is this above or below benchmarks? Is this on target, off target? And then you're killing and iterating and learning as you go through that whole process.
You just unpacked so much in such a short period of time. I love the simplicity of it. There are a couple of things I want to go deeper on. The first, and I think this is a really, really key point, is, you said at the beginning, you were getting like a 1.5x ROAS, which you're like, oh no, it needs to be a 3, and now you kill for a 1.5 at scale. That at scale piece, I think, is the interesting nuance there. Can you talk a little bit more about why having a lower, even like a sub 2x ROAS isn't a bad thing when you're scaling?
I mean, the key thing to understand as a business is what is your LTV contribution divided by your CAC, right? So not just your LTV, not just how much revenue do you get in, how much money is moving in after you take out your fulfillment and product costs, because that cash is the lifeblood of your business. So you need to understand how much is that customer going to give back to me? And then what's that CAC look like? And then, so taking more deeply into your question, if we think about like the distribution curve of innovation, right, which is the idea of like how fast an idea moves through a population, you can take that same principle for a product. There's always a subset of people that are just going to buy your thing. Your mom, your dad, your family, your cousin, that person that just happens to have the exact need that you have, that's always a sliver of the population. As you continue to scale out your business, you go into people that have a lower and lower need for your product. So the difficulty in acquiring them as a customer is also going to go up. So, what you're spending $10,000 a month on Meta, like you're going to have a whole different audience and a whole different marketing message when you're spending $100,000 or $1 million a month. Not that we're anywhere near that yet, but like, as you scale, it gets harder because the pool of people gets bigger, right? Even though there's, 300 million people on Meta in the US, like at a certain point, that's a finite number, right? So you're going to have hit people. So as you continue to scale, your cost per acquisition will likely increase as long as, assuming that you don't change your creative or you don't change your conversion rates or your AOV, then it becomes a harder and harder problem. So like as you scale, there's some benefits. Like, in almost any business, if you're buying a physical product, as you get bigger, you get economies of scale. So that t-shirt that cost you $30 when you bought 5 of them could get down to $5 when you're buying 50,000 of them, right? So even though you're fighting a CAC issue as you scale up, you could improve your margins and things, which is going to help that contribution LTV. But yeah, that's why like a 1x or a 2x ROAS doesn't super matter, assuming that you have a subscription business, right? If you have a business that has recurring revenue, you can afford to pay more than other people. If you sell like a laser hair removal thing, you need to be making a 1x or more, because otherwise actually definitely more, because otherwise you're losing money on those sales because people buy it once and then they don't come back. So it depends a lot on what kind of business you have, what kind of CACs and what kind of ROAS you can afford.
The follow-up that I have is tied to another thing you mentioned, which is, so we're talking through your contribution margin relative to your CAC. and when you were talking about the creative testing piece, you said, okay, we're going to measure this over whatever time period makes sense. It's really the time period is determined by budget. If you have $10,000 a day to spend on testing, you can afford to run a test for a shorter period of time, because when you're spending that money, you are collecting data faster. But if you're spending $10,000 over the course of a month, or even $5,000 or $1,000, you need to run a little bit longer just to be able to get the right amount of data. So that's that. But you mentioned, relative to your benchmarks, like the test, you're going to measure that data relative to your best benchmarks. If someone's just starting out, they don't have any benchmarks. How did y'all work through setting those benchmarks when you didn't have any?
Well, we had already spent a bunch of money by the time we realized we should have benchmarks. So we had some historicals. But what we did to understand what was good or not was, again, we literally just got on MentorPass. We booked a call with Nick Shackelford. We booked a call with, Ron over at Obvi. And we were like, all right, what do you guys use as benchmarks? And then we just wrote that down, and that's what we compared things against. So not super scientific, like key numbers. I'll just throw out some key numbers. So hook rate, which is 3-second views divided by impressions. We're aiming for more than 30%. Over 40 is really ideal. CTR, so click-through rate. And you always, if you're on Meta, you want to look at unique outbound click-through rate, because otherwise people could be clicking on, the copy or whatever. We're looking for over a 1.5% on that. And then those are kind of two metrics that we care about. And then, of course, whatever your internal CAC and ROAS targets, which, you guys will probably plug, but we use Triple Whale. And a really good app called Lebesk. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It's kind of a newer startup.
No,
so it's started by this YC alum. Worked in a couple different companies as their head of growth marketing. His name is Josep. But his app is super interesting because it's pulling in data from your Shopify, from Meta, from Google. And it lets you track different competitors' ads, just pulling from the Meta ad library. So you can use that as inspiration. But I forgot the train of thought. But anyways, it's a great app. It lets you kind of have an understanding of how good your ads are doing and what your competitors are doing for inspiration, along with helping you calculate those LTV and those cohort numbers that really matter.
Interesting. Okay. Do you use like the full like triple pixel? Are you on the attribution side?
Yeah, no, we use the
dashboard
pixel
feature. Okay. Again, your chemistry background, this is all stuff that you just figured out just talking to, like going through the MentorPass, going through the founder course, reading, I'm sure, just a bunch of stuff. Your co-founders, are they as involved in the analytics side or the creative ideation side? Like how at this point in time, how does the work get split?
I still, because I have the most quantitative background, still do a lot of the technical analysis, though I'm presenting that information to the team and we're kind of deciding based on it. And then, we all work on the creative side, especially, now the whole team is very familiar with Replo. So like they're going in and making LP changes and things like that. And, Chris, our CEO, again, he's been in the space for 30 years. Like literally all that he does all day is talk to people about their health problems. So when it's a copy question or like a structure question, we look to him, right? Because he is the most believable party, in the parlance of, Ray Dalio. He's the guy whose opinion matters because he has the most experience on it.
That's awesome. All right. So walk me through the production and then automation specifically. Maybe the automation is not directly tied to like your manufacturing, but when you're thinking about automation, what are all the different touch points that you have throughout your business?
So I'll talk about automation first, and if we want, we can talk production after. So on automation, like what you can do and what is given to you on Shopify, Klaviyo, all these things is just like absolute level zero. Like there's only so much that can happen and is built out of the box. But, all of these things have API connections. And if you're on like a Zapier or Make or something like that, and you have some understanding of how these things can like loop together, like what you can do is just incredible. So here's a really small thing that we're going to try out. We are trying to figure out, and Obvi did this case study with Prives, like we're just pulling that idea basically. We're trying to see if we can increase our second and third order rate. What we're going to be doing is in our first orders, we're going to tell people that there's going to be a free gift in their next, or if it's on the second order, on their third order. So the hope is that we can just radically improve the repeat purchase rates. How are we going to actually do that? So we're going to be running an automation that whenever a new customer comes in, it's going to go to an Airtable base. From that Airtable base, it's going to randomly assign them like a yes, no variable. So either they will get the card or they won't get the card, and it's going to tag them in Shopify. This way, in like 3 months, 4 months, we can see, okay, this customer got the card. Their repeat order rate is X. Okay, well, it turns out that's actually 3 times better than the people who didn't get the card. So, okay, we're going to be giving everybody these things. And, that sort of random automation and tagging is something that like it just isn't exist within Shopify, but is super easy to set up if you understand either Shopify flows or Make. And that's just like a really small example. I mean, like other stuff, like we do a lot of invoicing through Stripe for our retail partners. Stripe has like no good reporting features, like at all. So all of our Stripe invoices we send to an Airtable database, and then from there we're either just using it and looking at it in there, or downloading it and running pivot tables. But again, 2 little things, like instead of having to put an invoice in Stripe and then manually put it into a Google Sheet or something, like that connection is just automatic. And I mean, like I could talk all day about the million things that if you could do once, you can do infinite times with the computer.
How much is your Airtable bill?
Nothing. We have we have like thousands of dollars in credits. I can't remember what the name of the thing was, but we did this program like pretty early on, like an accelerator program, and they just gave us like $5,000 in credits. But it's also not a whole lot. Like even like that, if it's just my account and we just have a Prive account or a Make account, like a month it could be $30, and for us to run thousands of automations.
I had for a while I ran a scrubs business. It was a third-party retailer. We plugged in with all the major scrubs brands, and it had been around since the 90s. The brand had one of the earliest e-com plays ever, and we took it over, and so we just had so much historical data, and we dumped it all into Airtable for order processing and sorting and all these sorts of things. And it got so expensive really quickly just because we had so much data. We were hitting up like Airtable, like there are limits in Airtable that you have to call the enterprise sales team to be able to like move beyond. And we were just like 2 dudes in Arkansas trying to figure it out. So I always get a little like scared trying to build out some automations, but it's great to hear that you've been able to use that. You've got the credits, that helps a lot. But even like $30 is manageable. I mean, it's like what, like half an order for you guys?
Like not
I would
even,
imagine like it's not even
40% of an order. But yeah, I mean, anybody that's scared of it, like look at Make and look at Airtable. Airtable is just the brain center. Make is doing all the work, and like that way you don't need
Right.
a whole lot of stuff. And you can do these things in Sheets. It's just that Airtable's easier.
Zapier and Make are really, really great tools. It is hilarious how underutilized they tend to be, despite the power that they have. One of the things that you mentioned was, you were reading 4-Hour Workweek again, and it sparked a lot of ideas. Tell me about that experience. When was the first time you read 4-Hour Workweek, just out of curiosity? And then, like, as you were going through it, like, what are some of the other ideas that kind of like jumped off the page?
I probably read it for the first time like maybe 6 months ago, so not a long time ago. And then just sort of been rereading it like a couple times now. I think the biggest thing, and you sort of see this in some other books and stuff, is Pareto's Law, right? The 80-20 rule. It is so easy when you're running a business to just keep expanding the to-do list. What ends up happening is 90% of that never gets done, and you spend all of your time in email and admin tasks. So for me, like kind of the key thing was, okay, I know a little bit about automation. How do I automate as much of this work as possible? How do I delegate more of the work so that my focus is on things that really drive the needle? And I think if there's any takeaway from the book, there's a lot, but I'd say that's the main one, is look at what on earth you're doing every day. If it is not directly driving more revenue, like either offload it or just eliminate it. And you'd be surprised how little of that work really matters at the end of the day.
What are some of the things that you eliminated since revisiting or reading the book?
Yeah, I used to handle like a ton of admin stuff, like either invoicing, managing inbound, outbound shipments. We have a VA, and I wrote out in our Notion just a doc of how do you do all of these things. So I took an extra hour to do it the first time, and now I just don't ever do it, and it saves me hours and hours a week. Another thing, going back to the production side, we've been super fortunate to find 2 new co-packers, contract manufacturers that are turnkey. Like before, I would order all of our raw materials. I would coordinate inbound, outbound freight. I would work with the co-packer to actually get things filled. And like during a production run, that could be like 2 weeks of my whole life, like is just dealing with that. And that's just off the book. What used to be hours of time is now 2 30-minute meetings once a week, and like that's it. So anywhere that you can offload to a third-party vendor that you trust, or to a VA that's competent but inexpensive, like those are great opportunities to do that.
The turnkey, so they're doing all. So when you were doing it yourself, you were buying all the ingredients. Now that you've got this turnkey solution, that means that they're actually doing all the inventory, like the raw material ordering on your behalf.
Yeah,
just looking for you to like do final approval and stuff. If you've not read 4-Hour Work Week, highly recommend it. It's for a lot of us internet money people. That's like the genesis of the itch, how we got started. That was definitely the case for me. I think I read it for the first time in 2015, and that's simultaneously around the time, like, I think it was when I started doing e-com stuff. There's a great diagram in the automation section where Tim Ferriss like outlines, here's when an order happens, and then it goes to, this is where payment goes, and this is where the order information goes. Here's fulfillment and all these. And it's, I highly recommend anyone listening, if you haven't done that yet in your business, actually take out a sheet of paper. I actually keep a giant notebook right next to me to do this, every now and then. But if there's a process that needs to be run, it's always great to just map it out one time, just to see and what everything looks like and what you'll do. Or what I found is like the more you do that, you will find that there are steps that you just don't think about, that you just kind of take for granted, and you start to factor those in, and you're like, holy cow, it's actually kind of complex. But as you've done, when you go back through and you start to chip away, okay, I can automate this, I can delegate this, you can change your entire life, and it'll take a weekend. Like, it really doesn't take, in the grand scheme of things, that long. It's just dedicating the time to sit down and run the exercise. I think is the hard part. And it's something, the last couple episodes that we've had folks that have said that exact same thing. And I sit there and I'm like, I should do that for myself. I don't know why I'm not doing that. So it's great to hear that you've been ruthless about delegating and automating, both on the technical side, on the digital side, and also on the manufacturing side. I want to switch gears a little bit right now, and in the spirit of talking through your analytical mind, and you've mentioned that your team's using Replo pretty extensively. There's a story, and so I kind of know a little bit more than the audience does this one. There's a story with a really interesting ending. But how have y'all been using Replo and more broadly just landing pages in your testing process? And how's that helped you scale?
So in January, we stopped running ads because we were just out of product, right? But up until that point, by the way, we're back to running ads again. But before that point, we were basically just sending absolutely everybody to our homepage or to our product page. Why were we doing that? Because, we'd used Pagefly and Shogun, and like these were better, or not better. These were more capable than just doing things, hard coding in Shopify. But the aesthetics just sucked. They were really slow. Like, we had such a hard time editing them, and we just didn't use them. When we were relaunching the business, we were like, okay, we need to get CAC down. Like, we don't know what to do. So we went to some third parties to try to help build out landing pages. That sucked as well. And then we saw like a Facebook ad from you guys. We're like, okay, let's just try the free trial, whatever. And we were just, and I'm not saying this because this is the Replo podcast, like we were literally just blown away by how easy it was to build things that we had in our mind. And like, even aside from that, the library of pre-built things, it makes it so easy. Like, our current homepage is made in Pagefly, and we're going to scrap that in the next couple days probably. And we're building out a whole new one in Replo that just looks so much better. It's so much cleaner. And we're doing the same thing with all of our landing pages. So either we're looking at competitors and seeing what their landing pages look like, and we're building it from scratch, or we're trying to use the library that you guys have. And for us, it's made a really big difference, especially around AOV. We used to just send people to our PDPs. And in our PDP, there's like two options plus subscribe, unsubscribe. So there's basically like a 4 or 5 kind of item matrix that people have an option for. We would get a lot of customer support questions being like, how do I order this not on subscription? Like blah, blah, blah. Like, what is this? And there just wasn't a way for us to change the structure in Shopify natively. So what we ended up doing was building out our own landing pages, looking to like AG1 for some inspo. And we reduced what could have been, 5, 6 options for people down to just 3. Our main 14 pack that we called most popular, which has like some free digital downloads as alongside it, our 28 pack at a slight discount, both of these on subscription, and then the 14 pack not on subscription. So what we ended up seeing from that was like our AOV used to be like $30, $35. We were able to almost double it to like $70 overall. So when we go back to that CAC question, if your AOV just suddenly doubled, right, and there's not a significant increase in CAC, well, all of a sudden your ROAS just doubled too, and now you're way more profitable. And the only way we were really able to do that was like just being able to be flexible in Replo. And then, the next layer of that, which this is a free tool, everybody should use it if you don't have it, is Microsoft Clarity. Just a quick little snippet on your website. Because Replo is built into your website, you can see all of your Replo landing pages in Microsoft Clarity. And what Clarity does is it lets you see recordings of your customers as they navigate the website. So you can see where are they standing, what are they reading, what are they clicking through. Also shows you heat maps and things like that. So like if you have an easy to use tool like Replo and you have Microsoft Clarity where you're getting good data, your ability to iterate on headlines, structures, everything, went from what could have been a third-party developer taking weeks to change a button to literal seconds. However long it takes you to load the page, click it, and then hit publish. Like you can compress that learning so much. And the faster you learn, the better your CAC is going to get, the better everything's going to get for you.
It's the ideal 1-2 combo right there. Microsoft Clarity is a great tool. It is nice that it's free. But that's fantastic to hear. And you double your AOV, you double your return. Especially, if you can maintain CAC, in a lot of cases, we've heard the double your AOV and then also lowering your CAC just by nature of all of the improvements kind of compounding on one another. What was that first page that you launched where you were like, holy cow, like this is going to completely change everything for us? Did you have such a moment, or was it
it's definitely been iterative and we're still making improvements. I think the biggest thing was we had built out an advertorial in Webflow, which is another super easy tool. Of course, the problem with that is it doesn't connect to the Shopify, right? So huge issue for us. So we just rebuilt it in Replo, but we changed the buy option. So instead of just directing people from the Webflow to our product pages, we just had that, inside of the actual box. And, again, like a doubling of conversion rate and a doubling of AOV. So like all of a sudden the efficiency just went through the roof as a result of that. As Meta does, like that stopped working after a while for whatever reason. So we're making other changes.
Sure.
But like for me, I was just like, wow, this is like huge improvements. But even outside of performance, just the ease of use, right? Like it's very intuitive. It feels like Figma, which everyone should be pretty familiar with at this point. And the library, man, like the library just like takes up so much work just off your plate.
I appreciate that. It's good to hear, man. That's what we're trying to do. Trying to drop some more gems in there as often as we can. Just walk us really quickly through like the funnel overall. So is your primary new customer acquisition funnel meta ad to a landing page? Is it directly to like an offer page? You mentioned advertorials, that you were testing advertorials, like what's like the new and improved funnel that's been working for you?
What we have live right now is just meta to offer landing page. Offer landing page, honestly, that's like in the style of a PDP. There's the hero section right up top. People can buy under there. We sell food, right? So supplement facts are super prominent. And then, just customer reviews. Like, Nick Shawarma has a ton of info on like what to do on a landing page. We are just doing those things. There's nothing crazy about it. Secret sauce is always in your copywriting and how good your copy is. So that's kind of where we're trying to focus a lot of the energy on. But yeah, that's our main funnel right now. And then we use retention.com to like kind of capture emails for people that maybe don't sign up to our newsletter or whatever. And we use, I think it's called Get Amped for email capture and SMS capture. That one is really good. That one we have like a 14% opt-in rate on. So I mean, obviously that's like pretty good overall, but would recommend that one to people.
It sounds like you've gone to the best of the best in the game, in the DTC game. You've looked at what they're doing and you've just said, yeah, I want that, I want that, I want that. I mean, the fact that you're using retention.com, which tell us the 15 seconds or the 30 seconds on retention.com for those that don't know.
Yeah, super easy.
Cool.
Adam, who's the founder, had a really cool idea for the technology. Basically, they just take people's IP addresses. They have a gargantuan database, IP addresses and email addresses, and they just match those. So somebody who doesn't, sign up for your newsletter or SMS and they don't make a purchase, just by the fact that they're on the website, and it's all GDPR or it's privacy compliant, you get their email and it automatically goes to Klaviyo. So this is cool. We have some blogs that account for like half of our traffic, right? Like it's a huge traffic draw for us. And, we just couldn't get people to convert on the email SMS pop-up for whatever reason. But by having their emails through retention.com, they just go through into our regular newsletter list. And, every order that we get from that is an order that we paid absolutely $0 for, So it's just a good way to kind of continue to boost things. And as your business scales, it becomes more and more relevant because obviously you have more traffic coming in.
For multiple sources. I mean, it's just like, it's a great way to capture on earned media. I think, big brands like True Classic, for example, they're having a moment. Your Untuckits of the world running TV ads during the Super Bowl. You're going to get a ton of traffic to the site that may not necessarily be through the QR code or like the specific UTM link or whatever, and being able to capture them and being message to them is pretty powerful. I think retention.com is a fantastic tool. But again, going back to Happy Being, y'all just took the winning playbook and just ran with it. Obviously tweaking to your brand specs, your customer needs, etc. But this has been such a fun conversation because a lot of times I get asked like, hey, how do I grow an e-commerce business? I'm like, hey, go do X, Y, and Z, and then make the adjustments you need for your brand. And check in 6 months later. Hey, did you do X, Y, and Z? I'm still stuck on this or whatever.
But dude, that's the thing, right? Like if you have a list of 100 things, you're never going to do the thing that's important. Like if any founder or anybody in the e-com space or any business is listening to this, burn your list, do no more than 3 things and make those things happen, make those things happen and make sure that they lead to the metric that you want. Because otherwise you could just you just dilly-dally for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. You launched in 2019. And then, you popped right into the COVID world. We had ecom quite had the moment during COVID, incredible scale. What was that like? What was that roller coaster like?
Well, we incorporated in 2019, but because of COVID, all of our manufacturing was shut down for a year basically. So we ended up not launching until 21. But for us, we saw an immunity product, that we saw a health product. So being kind of at the tail end of COVID was totally a huge bump for us. And, it's hard to extract the beta, but could potentially have also helped us with our CAC questions. But yeah, it was for us very helpful. Again, launching e-commerce, being a health product in the moment when everyone is at home and they only care about their health.
And going through, 21, 22, iOS 14.5, 14.5, I don't know why I said it like that. Just all the volatility in the ad space, since, that time. What was that like? I mean, you said launched towards the tail end, helped out a lot, but has it been, tougher since, a lot of the volatility stuff was kind of kicked into play?
A little bit. We're not a 2016 brand, so we didn't enjoy the golden era. Right. So we've never, it's not different for us because we just didn't know any better. But I do think that,
right.
The hacks that existed just don't matter at all anymore. And what really matters is just the fundamentals of marketing, creating a product and messaging it well and making sure it delivers on real value. That hasn't changed, and that won't change. It's just about how good are you at delivering that message.
Got it. We're coming close to time, but we still have enough for me to get some more juicy nuggets from you. Let's go back to creative testing, because this is such a key part of scale. How do you do it? How do you do it at? Or let me back up. What's the volume of testing that you're doing currently? You talked about the framework. What's the volume that you're actually?
We're testing like 4 or 5 ads a week. Again, this is like so budget dependent and metric dependent. I have friends that are spending $1 million a month, right? And they're like, they can't feed the beast enough, right? But if you have $5,000 a month and spend, then you might have that volume that we have, or even less than that.
Is it just you're just making them yourself?
Yeah. So we have a team. If you're going to hire anybody, hire somebody that's good at content creation. Should be a good videographer, and then use No Limit Creative NLC.com for all of your editing and iterations. We do like multivariant testing mostly on our stills. So we'll take a Figma, we'll take an image, we'll take a headline, and then we'll make iterations on that based off, a few different headlines and then a few different visual representations of that. That's the way that we test. So that's how we take, 1 to 3 pictures and turn that into 15, 16 ads. And what are you doing? You're testing what's the message that works the best. What are the colors? What are all the little details that really matter and are going to help you spend more and more efficiently?
Nice. Big fan of No Limit Creative. I've used them for years. I've sent many tens of thousands of dollars to them, but it's been so worthwhile. Like, it's a great team, a great resource. Talk to me about your goals for this business. Like, has it performed the way you thought it was going to perform, or hoped it was going to perform? And then what's the next vision? Is this like, the thing that you're going to do for the next 30 years yourself? Is this, you're going to build it to sell it? What's the move?
Yeah, we don't think 30 years in this business right now. We're just thinking, all right, how do we get to be as profitable as we can? So just driving efficiencies from an operational perspective, and then driving more marketing efficiency. That's like the only thing that we care about in the universe. We just came out of a 10-year period where money was free. So like now we need to kind of rethink how one does things. So that's priority number one. What we'd love to do, going back to why we started this, is scaling out health and benefit for people. Not because I'm one of the co-founders, but I really think we have the best products on the market and are going to deliver the best results for people. So for us, it's just about scaling that message out, scaling those products out, and seeing if we can deliver more good for more people. If you look at the state of America's healthcare right now, like it's not just bad, it's embarrassing, how bad the US healthcare system is and how bad our population is from a health perspective. And we just want to do something that makes that a little bit easier for people. And as we continue to scale, we'll be able to offer more things and, be more affordable for people as well. And that's really the whole point, is just to drive more impact through the work that we're doing.
Incredible. And, before we wrap, I've got a couple more questions. One professional and then one a bit more personal. The professional question, what is the one thing you want our listeners to know about launching a business, like creating a new product from scratch? What's the one piece of advice you would give to someone trying to
this is something that I learned over the years. There are no secrets. There is no one has a magic backdoor to Zuck's bedroom that like gets them incredible ad return. There is nothing. It is just about how good you are at iterating on your product, how good you are at learning the skills of advertising. And that's it. If you can do those things, like, you will continue to grow your business as long as you have healthy margins, regardless of what happens from an iOS perspective. Like, anything that is a hack, don't listen to it. Just focus on time-tested fundamentals and make improvements on your metrics, which means you need to understand your metrics.
And lastly, if you could go back to the very start of this journey, knowing what you know now, what's the one piece of advice you would give to yourself?
Yeah, you don't have to do everything. And just because someone's expensive doesn't mean that they're good.
Okay, dude, those some heaters right there, brother. Dude, this has been so much fun. I feel like this has been such a tactical brand operator episode. One of our goals recently is getting people to, a lot of it's just regular interview format, but this has been really, really great because you've gone a lot deeper than I, thought we were going to, which is awesome. And actually building this business kind of step by step. We got to do this again. But that being said, before we sign off, give us a little plug about Happy Being, where to go, what to do, what to try.
drinkhappybeing.com, happybeing.co on Instagram and TikTok and all those things. Look, I think one of the biggest things is, and I didn't mention this earlier, like one of our products, the drinks, they have the equivalent of over 900 cups of blueberries in them in terms of the functional ingredients. Never in a million years can you drink or eat 900 cups of blueberries in one sitting, but you can drink it in one of our bottles. And like one of the things that's to me really personally inspiring is we exist in a moment in time when we can be healthier than we ever thought possible, right? So if you're looking to level up your game, do whatever, trying to get the best products that taste good, I think Happy Being is a great choice for that. And even if it's not us, just look and explore the world of polyphenols and, what things like cold plunges and fasting and all that can do for you, because we exist in a time when we can just go beyond what we thought was possible.
That's amazing. I'm gonna follow up with you on your thoughts about Brian Johnson and Blueprint.
Yeah.
That's for another day. Josemaria, dude, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an incredible episode of Design to Convert, and entering a new era of what this content is. Cannot wait to get this out to the people, and I hope we get to do this again soon. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see everyone on the pod again very soon.
Thank you.
Take care.